This part of the River Ribble has a real special place inside my heart. I've had a few personal bests along this stretch. But this is the Mellings Wood, it's a free stretch. I've had some real close calls and I've had some magical fish. So starting with my very first River Ribble chub, which I still haven't beat, which I didn't weigh back in the early days. There's a big willow tree just here on the left. And this place has transformed since I used to fish. I'm standing here on a nice pathway. Originally this was all woodland. There was no concrete path. What we're standing on now was a big pipe, which is why this stretch is sometimes known as the pipeline. But the trees used to come down and kiss the water's edge, and the whole place looked completely different. And I would say the fishing was actually better back then. Now, it's good because it's made it accessible. It's easy to get down here now, so a lot more people can come down and enjoy the space. But when it wasn't like this, when it was in its natural beauty, is when I had my first ever chub just under a willow tree, which the willow tree's still there now, and the branches do kiss the water still. And I had it on a broke rod. I broke my rod that day. I broke the tip off my rod, and I was feeling a little bit annoyed with myself. I was sitting down with my brother. So I just free lined a piece of meat and just threw it in at the side and underneath the willow branches and ignored it, and sat down and watched my brother catch some fish. And before the night was out, my rod was pulled right off its stand and it was into the biggest chub I've ever caught. My brother actually got down, and it was that big he actually got into the water and cradled it out like a baby. And we were in awe, we were in shock, and I've never seen a chub as big as that come out of the River Ribble. I've never seen a chub as big as that in my life. I didn't have scales. It was back in my infancy whenever I was first starting to learn how to river fish. But wow, what a fish. And then other memorable times when we've been down here, not far upstream from that, just on the bend, just at the very start of the woodland, I had 3 seasons ago my 13/8 barbel. So I've come out of the woods, I've been walking along the path here, and this is another area that I've seen lots of carp. There's a big back eddy here, and early summer is the best time to spot them. Usually before the season starts, I'll come for a walk down and see what I can see, and usually there's a massive shoal of carp that just sit in this back eddy. I call this the steps peg. Some people call it the carp pegs, but you won't see it now, but the river's up about half a metre. Some concrete blocks just down the bottom there. So that's why I call that the steps. So this is a good area if you're going to target the carp early, probably early season would be the best time. Now that's not to say that it won't be here this time of year, because the back eddy's still here and carp do like that. But if you look down there, you can just see some leaves on the surface. And you'll notice that they're actually moving that way. The flow, if you look out there, is moving out towards the sea. But if you look down there, them leaves, they're actually moving upstream, and that would indicate that there's a back eddy here. So that's a good place if you want to target a lot of different types of species. There'll be a lot of prey fish down here as well. And when it's in flood, a lot of the small fish will move in here. And where you find the small fish, you're also going to find the predators. So then again, it'd be worth targeting the pike and maybe the perch in this spot, which I might have a little go at later. We'll see. But first, I'm going to find myself a nice quiet peg. I'm going to set up a little feeder rod, and I'm going to target the roach and the silverfish. Look at this one. What is this, a drum cree standoff? Let me pass. Look at this one here. This is Johnny Adair. Back off, Johnny. Back off. Hey boys. Now, come on fellas. Good lads. Good lads. Go on. Join the herd. Good lads. And here we have a load of geese as well. Geese, years ago, used to be used by the Romans as guard dogs. So that would be the Roman equivalent of a pack of wild rabid dogs. And to look at them, you wouldn't think that, would you? They're cute, aren't they? But usually when they're all eating or sleeping, there's always one that stands alert and guard, and you'll notice that their heads will be up in the air and they'll be watching my every movement. Like you can see here, this one here. This one is the guard. And what you'll get is he will give them a warning. So years ago, time of the Romans, if any invaders were sneaking up to the village or up to the village gates or walls, the geese would give the warning sign, hoot hoot hoot, and the guards would be out with their bow and arrows and their spades and their shovels and their picks, ready to take on whoever it was. Might be just farmers defending their land. Maybe the Vikings have come to plunder, and what are they faced with? A flock of geese. So this tree used to be called, well, it still is called, it was the salmon tree, and it was a prolific place to catch salmon in days gone by. But it got struck by lightning many years ago, and it's almost died. It's not died completely, but it's in a really bad entangled state right now, and that's because of the floods. So a lot of the banking down here has transformed over the years because of erosion, because of the floods. And there you have that alarm. There's the alarm. Raising the alarm. Some mad Irishman coming down. Let's attack. There's no Romans sneaking over the hedgerow there, so I'm fine. It's a lovely place to be. Over the years, I always wondered, was there a bridge at this point? Because I've seen so much stonework, masonry, even the odd house brick down here, and I'm thinking there used to be some sort of a structure here many years ago, and it looks like it would be a good crossing point, but I've never got to the bottom of that. But there's some big stone pillars over there, and they've been there since I used to come down here. And what this erosion's also done is it's created like a vertical slope from the river down to the riverbed there, and along there you'll find loads of little holes, and inside there little sand martins. And there's one that goes, there's one away across the river there. I can just hear them chirp chirp chirp. You might see a few of them coming in and out of the holes. There's plenty of them there flying around. Little sand martins. And I'm not too sure if the sand martins live there all year, or whether they leave and go to Africa and come back, and then another bird will take up residence. I'm not sure. But it's just a lovely place, isn't it? Okay, so this is my setup I'm going to be using today to target the silverfish here in the River Ribble. So I'm using a very light rod. Now this rod may be very light, but it's actually a very strong rod. It's actually designed to catch carp, and I've had some big double-figure carp with this little rod. However, it's so light and has a little quiver tip down at the end, a little 2.5 ounce quiver tip, and it is very sensitive. If you imagine any little knock on that rod, what am I going to see? I'm going to see a little registration. It's so sensitive, and that's what you really want. You can use any type of quiver tip rod. I'm just using one that's very small, very light. It's only, what, 10 foot, this one. So the reason why I'm using such a short rod is I'm going to be catching roach and silvers from right underneath my feet. So that's paired with a little small reel. Doesn't matter what reel you use. What's important is your line. Now, not so much your main line. You can use any size of main line really. 6 pounds ideal. But what's important is your hook length. So I'm using, it's almost invisible, and that's 3 pound line, and that's got a very sharp hook. It's just stuck in my finger, and it's a little maggot hook. This, it's very small, little size 18. You can barely see that. It's a little 18. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bait band, and I'm going to make a little cylinder of braid, and I'm going to band that to the hook. And then what I've done, because that hook length is so light, I've needed to create a boom so that it doesn't get tangled with the feeder. So here's my feeder running on my line, 6-pound main line. It's a Camison black cap, perfect for maggots but also very good for liquidized bread. So if you've got any old bread in the house, mash it all up into fine powder, keeping it dry, and that'll easily escape from them holes. That's a perfect bait, especially for roach this time of the year. So I've added a little link swivel onto that, so it's running more freely with a large eye on that link swivel, and that's important as well because it minimises resistance. And then to create the boom effect, I've just added a little rubber bead, and that's an extra large rubber bead, and that comes down to a little float stop, and then loop to loop connection. I've just connected the 3-pound line to the 6-pound line, and it just sits like that. If you can just see, it just sits off, a little mini boom, and that's perfect. So here we have what I'm going to use. As you can see, look, I've just crumbled up some old bread into crumbs, and that's perfect. Now that's going to go into the feeder. The one I'm going to use on the hook, just get a slice of bread, just take a little piece off. There you go, a little piece. Flatten it with your thumb and just make a cylinder with your, just rub it together like so. And you'll see it makes it like a little sausage. So what you do then, just cut off a little small piece, very small this has to be. You can trim it down after you put your band on. There you go, a wee sausage. So then you just pick one of the bait bands, a little Dura band here, and it doesn't have to be very big. I'll go for a medium sized one. Take a medium sized one off. There we go. There we are, a little medium sized one. And all you do, get your little bait bander, open it up like so, and just drop your sausage down in. There you are, and just slide that off. There you have it, that's your bait ready. A little bait band around there. Now, because we're targeting small fish, that's going to be smaller. So all you do, and it will expand in the water as well, so bearing that in mind, just make it smaller. Cut it down to size. There you have a small little piece of bait, a little pellet almost, and that'll fit in a little dace's mouth, a little roach's mouth, a little chub's mouth, no problem at all. That's perfect. So to hook that on, it's very simple. Just get your hook, which is almost invisible here, and all you do, can be a bit fiddly when you're using small hooks, and all you do is basically put the band underneath the bend of the hook, and that'll just keep it on in time for a fish to come along. There, that's perfect. So there you have it. You see it's hooked on, that's perfect. It's almost like a hair rig really. Now that'll expand in the water, so it will get slightly bigger, so you'll not just be catching the mini species, you'll be catching the larger roach. And then all you do is fill your feeder, just fill it. Just open the black cap, get your feed, and just fill it. Don't compact it too much. Just press some in. Don't compact it too much. You want it all to explode out, and just close the lid. Now that is perfect. And you see that bait will sit off, and it'll boom off the main feeder here, so as the little particles are drifting out of the holes, they'll just sit in the bottom. Fish will come along, unsuspecting fish will come along and grab your hook bait and hook itself with the weight of the feeder. That's the theory. Now let's put it into practice. So here's the proof in the method. A nice little River Ribble roach. Caught and bred. This is what you can catch on the braid. Isn't that just gorgeous? Perfect size for a pike. So I might just rig this one up for a pike. Happy days. So here I have the roach live bait. Just took through the top lip. That's perfect. See, as a pike turns the bait in its mouth, it'll turn the head to go first. So that should catch in the pike's mouth. And then it's an early strike. And I'm playing a pike. It's perfect. Pike's got it. Oh yes. Big pike has this. Yes. Oh yeah. Pike took that roach straight away. It's only been in 5 minutes. It's only a small pike, I think. Oh, can you believe that? Look at that. Take long, did it? There you have her. And she's a gorgeous fish. Absolutely beautiful. I don't know, about 7.5 pound. But that's a lovely River Ribble pike who just loved that roach, just mullered it. And it's got a bit of a fat belly there, so let's give this pike the respect it deserves and let's slip it back into its watery depths. Lovely. This is my favourite time, actually releasing the fish back into where it lives. So I'm sure this pike is ready to go back. It's kicking and fighting. So I'm just going to slip the net from underneath its belly and watch it swim off. It's just turned and off it goes. That is beautiful. Happy days. Okay, now I'm going to show you what method I use to catch perch and pike here on the River Ribble. Now, this is mainly a perch rig, however, with there being a lot of pike here in the River Ribble, you end up catching them as well. So, what bait I'm going to be using will determine what species I'm going to catch. If I use a live bait, I'm going to catch both pike and perch. Now, if I use a worm, that narrows it down, so probably 90% chance of catching anything but a pike, maybe a chub or a perch. But the swim that I've chose to target, it's really close into the bank, so that sort of narrows it down. That's where the perch live, in close underneath reed beds, a little bit of structure, little ambush points, so there will be pike and perch in that swim. So with pike being in my swim, I'm going to be using some wire. So that's a strip of wire as the hook length. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the top of the rod. I'm going to work my way down just to explain. So using a strong rod, it's a CARP rod, large rings on it for less resistance. Should a fish want to pull away, I've got a bait runner function on there. So here's the rig I'm going to be using for the perch. As you can see, got a pike waggler on there, takes 12 grams, and that's stopped by two little rubber float stops. And then you come straight down straight down, and then we have a little run rig, little plastic run rig, as you can just see that, and that's stopped by a rubber bead, 2 rubber beads, and then a swivel which is tied onto my hook length, which comes down. It is wire, and tied to that wire I've got quite a large hook on there, quite a large single hook, as you can see. And there you have a big lobworm, which is only hooked for the centre, and look how wriggly it is. Perfect. What perch could resist that? That is absolutely perfect. Well, the methods worked. This beautiful beast took 2 lobworms, and it's made me just the happiest angler on the River Ribble. Really has. Look at the colours on it. Beautiful. You see the black stripes? This time of the year, these predators will be sitting in close, ready to ambush any prey that go past. And them stripes just make that perfectly camouflage. They'll sit underneath tree branches hanging down, and those black bars just look like branches hanging down, and the last thing a fish is going to see is that big mouth. And that's beautiful. That's lovely. Time to slip him back.
Taken by the words that you say, the voice that carries them has kept me astray. Too soon to act on it, can we ever be? That all depends on what you're feeling from me. Let me show you all the way. Let me show